I want us to focus on a different story, and that is about resource allocation, quite related, but the resources that counties need. Yesterday, the Deputy President was chairing the IBEC, that is the Intergovernmental Budget and Economics Council, and he's telling counties that they need to come up with ways of raising revenues, own source revenue, to supplement their needs in as far as sponsoring both recurrent and development expenditure. When I look at the report of the Control of Budget for the financial year 2017-2018, they were targeting to raise 49 billion shillings at the counties, but they're only able to raise about 32 billion shillings, and it has always been a challenge to bridge this gap. So are there things that they can do, or maybe some mistakes they are making that is making them not meet these target revenue levels?
Yes. First and foremost, we need a law. We need a law to demarcate the levels of taxation at the national and at the county level. Just like in the US, you have the tiers of taxation for the federal, the state and the local government, the county level. So that then you, for example, in the US, they do with issues of excise duty, used to do with the sales tax, property. It's very well clear. But in this country, like in Mombasa, there is a challenge because the same bed capacity is charged by the tourism levy, and also the local county is also trying to get money out of it. So you find this double or even multiple taxation, and sometimes some of these taxations are inferred. To what extent can you say then VAT takes care of some of these concerns? So our tax regime has a problem, and that is what has now made counties sometimes difficult for them to tax. That's number one. Number two, there are weak systems of accountability. We've had, rumors of stories of governors asking people to collect money, and they are remitted to themselves. And it is kind of true, because if you look at the former county councils, they were collecting more than what is being collected now by county governments. So how do you explain that? We have reinvented municipalities again. They are now back, they are in fashion because of the conditional grants under the World Bank. So, several of them have, been restated. But then the issue is that the overdependence on the national government for the ordinary shareable revenue has made people become lazy. So much so that currently you find some of all of the development expenditure is going to say like health, like Embu County is a very good example. And now we in the Senate are coming up with the World Development Fund, where we are proposing 15 to 20% of development expenditure goes towards. Now, this will be a serious challenge if people are not able to be innovative in the ways in which they are supposed to generate revenue. The other challenge that also counties have done is that they have not been able to create partnerships to tap into their economic potential with regard to tourism, with regard to manufacturing and what have you. We are seeing an increase in terms of pending bills, but these are roadside declaration kind of bills because people want to be seen to have been given jobs to their cronies or, those kind of things. And also, their investment plans, they are borrowing, but for recurrent. So it is really a challenge. No governor has had the temerity, the audacity to actually reduce the workforce, because they are supposed to be increasing employment. So that county governments have become employment bureaus. So all of these issues are true, in short, what I'm trying to say. Because by the end of the day, if you look at even the amounts of money we are supposed to appropriate for the new division of revenue bill, it cannot go more than 320 billion.
But Mheshimiwa Moro, let's be a little practical. First of all, you are saying that the Senate is proposing that 15 to 20% of development budgets go to the wards.
Yes.
I'm just struggling with, when a county is coming up with a development budget, why is it intended to be it, not the wards?
No, what happens is that there's a two way of looking at things. Number one, there's a big projects. You need them because they are flagship. They are for everybody in the county. But governors have been accused, and rightly so, of favoring some areas of the county against others. So you've got to have a balance between big projects versus small projects. The small projects will go to the wards so that each and every ward has got an equal share. Of the resources. So that the small projects like a bridge, which may cost 1 or 2 million, you don't have to revert back to a governor so that MCAs are made beggars. And you see, that will also help to ensure that there's proper distribution. But then the big projects, then you leave to the governor and his CEC. And the structure would be that the CEC is the accounting officer. Through the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan, and also the Annual Development Plan. That way people can identify priorities based on their own projections. And that way then you will ensure that you don't have people stealing money from a county, taking it back to Nairobi to buy property, which is what has been happening. So that it makes the devolution looks very like a mockery of the devolution. Because if today I am the governor of a so-and-so county, I steal money because it was from a huge project, I come and buy a flat here, or a hotel, really?
All right, Mheshimiwa Wanga, Senator Mwaura is talking about reducing workforce at the counties, but when you look at the situation that is facing the counties, for instance, if you look at yours, there are certain contextual realities that you must be alive to. When you tell a governor to reduce the workforce, what exactly are you telling them? These are people that voted for him, they supported him to be in office, now you turn against them. How do you balance between prudent utilization of resources vis-a-vis the political interest, and at the same time you ensure that you continue to raise revenue without, without causing harm to the same people that are supposed to be making some returns in their own investments?
Yeah, what I think is we must look at devolution. It's now been, it's going to be 8, 10 years of devolution. Is it working in its current form? Is this what Kenyans envisaged when we talked about devolution? Are our devolution units economically viable? The county councils and all these people left so many staff in the counties that, and counties did not say we are not employing because we already have, because everybody wants to do people favors. But how many people are employed in counties vis-a-vis the population of those counties? Homo Bay, for example, how many people are hired by the county? There couldn't be more than maybe 100,000 people. Homo Bay has 1.4, 1.5. Census will tell us probably 1.8 million people. All who are looking out for development. They want a change in their lives because government was brought closer to them. But that change is not coming. It is not coming because at the county level we are burdened. And on the earlier question, I want to agree with Senator Mwaura that there is a problem. If before we got into counties we were declaring much more money than we are declaring now, then the problem is really around, and you find that many of the taxes have actually been increased in the counties. But these taxes are increased without requisite, improvement of conditions, of even, traders are told, can you pay, instead of paying the 15 shillings you're paying, Mama Mboga, now pay 30. But even if you're paying 30, the same market where you are selling is the same place, it is muddy, it is, there is no improvement absolutely. Even as we move forward, we're going to have a very, very serious debate around whether devolution is working in its current form. It's a good thing.
Right.
It's what we have longed for as a country. It is what we have protected, and some counties are doing very, very well. But this is not applying across the board. So we must have a debate around what we can do to save our counties, what we can do to save our people through devolution. We must tweak devolution and make it work for the people rather than for a few people hired at the county level. Devolution is not about those who are hired. Those are just very, very few. But they make the loudest noise, They will say, oh, why are you firing us? We will chase you, we will take you home. But how about all the millions of people who you're supposed to give service to?
I'm struggling with finding that solution because, yes, the debate has to be held. It will be how many years? It's already 6 years, going to 7. But there are still those challenges that the two honorable members are talking about. What are those solutions?
You see, in an ideal world or so we thought, devolution, and Senator gave a very good example of how the United States works, how the United States work when you look at, places like IRS, how they are able to filter in with state taxes and things like those. And how that is tiered, I thought probably that those are some of the examples we should have, or principles that we should have taken when it came to, you know, us running these devolved units. I think where we are getting it wrong, and justifiably so, is we've treated devolution as the facet where salaries are collected. Each county must come with an economic plan. And I believe that's where it's, you know, the issue should, actually that's where the conversation should begin. Every county must have an area whereby they are able to show, we have raised this amount of money, whether it's through taxes or any other economic project. And then they say, the deficit which we require from the national government is blah, blah, blah. Big projects that are done through the national government, not through its standing, a county cannot survive by the current equation. Even the government itself. Just the other day when several politicians were talking about Punguza Mzigo, you realize they were actually coming with numbers that were suggesting half of our national, the money that we collect, half of it is spent on recurrent expenditure. And that is why you will see when it comes to the issue of loans, we are even struggling. So how do we work around that narrative? Because it has filtered all the way through to the counties. And some, let me repeat, at the current, the way things are going, in the counties, those counties cannot survive. Not in the next 10 years. Because if ours will just be taking, we are not producing, we don't have any economic plan, we are just waiting for the taxpayer, mostly from Nairobi where 60% of our GDP is raised, and then filtered through these counties. And all these counties are doing, like Senator has said, it's getting this money, they are not using it properly, they are not advancing their counties in any way, shape or form. They are actually running to other major cities to buy buildings and hotels. You realize, obviously, that equation cannot work. It will only get to a point where everything becomes, you know, everything moves into a gridlock. So if I was asked, the main thing that counties should do, they must find their economic powerhouse. Each county must have a way of sustaining. They must bring up something where they show the national government or the Kenyans or the county population said, we have been able to raise this number of billions. And what we need for us to run effectively in this county is ABC. And this is the amount of money we are expecting from the national government. But if the national government is just going to pump in money, the other day, the Auditor General just told you the counties that have done zero development with all the money that they've been given. Control of budget, rather. Yes. What does that suggest, Sam? There is an equation that's not balancing. And you cannot continue like that. So counties must find an economic, you know, taxes notwithstanding, because really you cannot tax a population that's not working. So even in those counties, they must bring up an economic platform where now they can tax. And you know, really, when you tax is when you start spending. You cannot all the time be getting money and it's going down into paying salaries. I mean, it's...
You're the senator here, and this is not the first time we're having such a conversation, but he predicts that in 10 years' time the counties will not be in a position to function. But I'm still struggling with the, for instance, this financial year, the counties will receive about 340 billion shillings. So there's a figure of about 372 being floated. But then again, you realize that every other time the exchequer releases are late because the national government is not able to raise revenues at the expected rate. We still have the recurrent expenditure so high, in some counties more than 70%. For instance, in the case of Machakos County, I think it was 87% in the financial year 2017-18. I mean, yes, the debate has to be held, but what is the ultimate solution and what can the Senate do in helping resolve this situation?
First and foremost, I think we need to agree that the theory of devolution is safe and sound. Absolutely amazing. I was in Kakamega last year during the devolution conference, and the brains, the thinking, everything. If you're in that room, you'd think devolution, I mean, really is really a magic bullet. But the practice is really wanting. And why? Because the realities on the ground are very different from what was theorized by those who are do-gooders. Now, we over-devolved, we must accept. There are too many counties, a good number of them are unviable.
Yeah.
And I can mention quite a number. So let us not, be happy that we have a small county there with our governor and some small assembly. Those things are not going to help anybody. It's a mirage, the illusion of power. But now if you are to tell Kenyans to consolidate, you will face a lot of resistance.
Sure.
Now counties are associating because they've also realized the challenge by coming up with regional economic blocks. And I think in the referendum that is imminent, because I think it is imminent, we should have that mention. Not like, maybe, this is my opinion, not like another tier of government, but it should be anchored in the constitution. So that counties are assisted to associate, to synergize their resources, but also to get now monies from the national government as conditional grants, and also from other development partners, because it is more economically viable to borrow in a collegiate manner for projects that then are inter-county. Now, the issue of wage bill must be addressed. As a matter of fact, it must be. The issue of pending bills must be addressed. Now, what happens in America, and I think it's a model we should have borrowed, is that before you borrow, people must go to a plebiscite. You must go to a referendum to ask for more money by each state. This gives discipline to the governors, because Muthuma and Honorable Wanga, who may be a future governor, will agree with me, is that the problem with ourselves is because we do not have fiscal discipline in terms of budgets. We don't adhere to our budgets, and it is very popular for a governor to think that they have a leeway to increase expenditure as per their will and wish. So that is something that has not gone down very well. The PFM law seems not to have succeeded in taming the appetite for increase of expenditure by governors. So it is a conversation we need to have.
Right.
Certainly, I want to agree with Gabriel. Some of the counties will eventually not be viable. But we may end up stuck with a political solution to an economic problem. Right. So we'll have to face this at some point. However, the challenge is that by the time we do so, we may be in so much debt, we may be in so much gridlock, that to extricate ourselves will be a question where, like, we had odious debts for most of the African countries, which we are going back to with the China and other so-called new lenders. So it's not an easy conversation, but I want to say this as a practicing politician. Now I'm slowly accepting that I'm one. I used to be in denial. Is that I used to think that when I came to politics, people are in it for the best, for the good of the country. But at some point, I think because of the frustration of delivery and the realities of the job, people end up then pursuing power and how they can survive. So this is where you wonder, because how do you explain, and allow me to say this, a governor who comes and has inherited a lot of debt of projects that are not viable, and before you start implementing your own vision, you have to clear with this mess. So that's why county governors are refusing to pay. It's understandable. Okay. You see, so we must have some conversation. And also, this high attrition rate, 25 governors never came back, I think. The next batch will also be like that. What is this excitement about us Kenyans wanting to change our leadership every 5 years? Because I would want to imagine, even if you are the worst of governors, if you serve for 2 terms, you will have achieved something. I'm not advocating that non-performance should be rewarded through the ballot. Okay. But I think I have seen other stronger, jurisdictions have people who have been in the system a little bit longer. Okay. So that they are able to have institutional memory, they are able to carry on their expertise, but it's the same thing if you look at the county assemblies, the governors, and even our national parliament.
Yet some of these governors who are serving their second term, they're still facing the same challenges that are affecting the counties. So there's no clear evidence that experience really works for this country.
Oparanya and Kivuda are good examples.
Good examples of what's working. I'm surprised that Maura is saying that he's accepting that he's a politician. Yet we were student leaders with him long before. So anyway, at Kenyatta University,
he has been a politician.
Student leaders.
Yeah, he's been a politician for as long as I remember.
That's politics.
But what I'd like to say is to really agree that some of our counties are economically unviable. 2, in that realization, our counties, as currently are coming together in loose blocks. you know, economic blocks to try and leverage on their numbers. And when you see these formations, it shows that there is a need. There is a need for them to pull together so that they can talk to even partners and say, look, we are here, this is our base, it is of this. But if we continue in that line, and this is what I want to suggest moving forward, that we must look at how to create larger units. BOMAS was always right, you know, when we spoke at BOMAS.
Do those units need to be created in law?
We must create them in law for them to function. When we were at BOMAS, it was always thought that we were going to have 14 devolved units. It was never this 47. Tell me, even Nigeria with all that population, how many states it has? 36. It is not 47. So what we are talking about, 47 counties, has never really applied anywhere. And that is why what we have become, what counties have become now is like, you know, they're just, you know, people are sitting waiting for exchequer. You know, when you go to the counties, the best language there is IFMIS. Everybody knows about IFMIS. They say, oh, the IFMIS is down, we are still waiting for IFMIS, you know, IFMIS, you know, but it shouldn't be the case. No.
And then,
counties
and then
should
when
be
investigating, the money is found to have been lost through IFMIS.
Yeah. You know, so counties we must have the debate around how do we have these units. I agree that people will say, this is our county, it can't be folded, there are so many, you know, so we, you know, don't fold counties, but create units that are viable, and then make counties, you know, administrative units where, you know, the person there knows, you know, all the details, and they can manage that.
I didn't want to progress on with this conversation, but you're tempting me to, because part of the conversation has been having a third tier of governance, and some Kenyans have felt that this is going to be more expensive than we already are, because when you have a regional premier, for instance, then it would mean that a collection of a few counties, they have now another leader who has his own government, his own assembly.
Yeah, I'd like to speak about this. Currently, as we are speaking, counties are spending up to zero of the money they are receiving on development.
Up to zero is interesting.
You know, they are spending really, some are spending zero, some are spending 15%, some are spending, but how much of this money should actually be spent on development? It should be 70% on development, 30% on recurrent. When you have, and creation of a higher tier must not be looked at as a creation of a job or creation of something. It must be looked at as a way of managing that lower unit so that expenses can be consolidated at one higher unit. So you cannot retain counties as they are and then create another unit. It must be managed down there so that when you're talking about CECs, for example, every county cannot be having a CEC driving and then you have a regional. No. If you have a regional assembly that is powerful enough, at the county level, it can be made as lean as possible so that what the operations at the county is simply receiving resources and deploying them for development, rather than having a whole government, you know, at all these levels.
Final note on this is,
and look at it in this way. The reason why I've always supported, first of all, I've been a very huge supporter of lean governments. And the reason why I would support something that comes close to an economic bloc, you know, that if it was to be created by law for that economic bloc to actually oversee the development in the counties, it would work. Albeit the fact that people will always bring the politics into it. Who will run that economic bloc? You know, the usual politics that we are treated to. But if it was to work in such a way, then you can actually demarcate larger developments and ask, where is this particular development? Where is it supposed to be if you're looking at about 3 or 4 counties? For instance, in this one, I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation. These 4 counties, each county may decide, let us build our small airport. And before you say cut in half, you'll have 4 airports in 4 counties. But a regional bloc has a bird's eye view to say, these counties sits strategic for us to have one good airport that will serve these other counties, and it has worked like that. So it can bring in an economic side of things that one county cannot be able to look into. So as much as we are talking, you know, having sustenance in counties, the key that Kenyans must always remember is counties came home or came close to the Mwananchi and the wards and everything, so
Okay.
that development can come near.
Okay.
But if that development is going to be exchanged by just people receiving a paycheck, that's why I'm saying then that is a county that cannot survive.
All right.
You cannot survive in that equation. I've never seen one survive.